Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajakacarya Stotarasita Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajakacarya Stotarasita Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Go Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shama Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai Shri Shri Gaunitai Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Sarat Bihari Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Samveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Sankirtan Jagna Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 40. I had a difficult time trying to get the meter for this verse, but I'll try my best. I'm sure some of you can probably do it better. Lalita Gita Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumana Kritam Manukritavaya Umadanda Prakritim Agankila Yasagopavadva Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Panaya Nirikshana Kalpita Rumana Kritam Anukrita Vatya Umadanda Prakritim Agankila Yasya Gopavadva Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasha Panaya Nirikshana Kalpita Rumana Kritam Anukrita Vatya Umadanda Prakritim Agankila Yasya Gopavadva. Krishna Prabhu.
Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpito Rumana Kritamanukritta Vatya Unmadandha Prakritim Agankila Yasya Gopavadva.
Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpato Rumana Krita Manokrita Vatya Unmadanda Prakriti Magan Kilayasya Gopavadva.
Someone else?
Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nikritsana Kalpitaro Manaha Kratam Anukratvatya Unmadandha Prakritim Agnakil Yasya Gopavadvaha.
Anyone else? Brave souls. Okay, word for word. Lalita, attractive. Gati, movements. Vilasa, fascinating acts. Valguhasa, sweet smiling. Pranaya, loving. Nirikshana, looking upon. kalpita, mentality, urumana, highly glorified, kritam, anukritavatya, in the act of copying the movements, unmada anda, gone mad in ecstasy, prakritim, characteristics, agan, underwent, kila, certainly, yasya, whose, gopavadva, the cowherd damsels. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Shri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Brajadam, the Gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance. Report. By intense ecstasy and loving service, the damsels of Brajabhumi attained qualitative oneness with the Lord. By dancing with him on an equal level, embracing him in nuptial love, smiling at him in joke, and looking at him with a loving attitude. The relation of the Lord with Arjuna is undoubtedly praiseworthy for devotees like Bhishma Dev. But the relation of the Gopis with the Lord is still more praiseworthy because of their still more purified loving service. By the grace of the Lord, Arjuna was fortunate enough to have the fraternal service of the Lord as chariot driver. But the Lord did not award Arjuna with equal strength. The Gopis, however, practically became one with the Lord by attainment of equal footing with the Lord. Bhishma's aspiration to remember the Gopis is a prayer to have their mercy also at the last stage of his life. The Lord is satisfied more when his pure devotees are glorified. And therefore, Bhishma Dev has not only glorified the acts of Arjuna, his immediate object of attraction, but has also remembered the Gopis who were endowed with unrivaled opportunities for rendering loving service to the Lord. The Gopis' equality with the Lord should never be misunderstood to be like the Sayuja liberation of the impersonalist. The equality is one of perfect ecstasy, where the differential conception is completely eradicated. For the interest of the lover and the beloved become identical. Tasmai Shri Guruveda Mahashi Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupakata Maya Tadate Swapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Go Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Shri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Brajadam, the Gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance. So Bhishma Dev, this is the last moments of his time in this particular sphere of existence in the material world. And he's been glorifying the Lord prior to this particular verse and appreciating the Pandavas and all the struggles that they had gone through. Now he's beginning to close out his activities, and he's thinking about the Gopis, remembering the Gopis. And that falls within the context of what Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport. The Lord is satisfied more when his pure devotees are glorified. So he's obviously, according to Bhagavad Gita, one who thinks of the Lord at the time of death, yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tajanti hi kalevra. And Krishna always says, think of me, mamanat bhavamad bhakto majaji mam namaskaru. In so many places, he talks about thinking of me. And of course, Bhishma is doing that, but simultaneously, he's thinking of the Gopis. And here again, appreciating, thinking of, respecting, glorifying the devotees, the Lord is actually more pleased. So Bhishma has a great personality. He's showing us by his example what are the important things of life. In fact, they had asked him to describe all the important things in life as he's lying on his bed of arrows. So Bhishma began to explain different aspects of society. But then he shuts down. He only wants to think of the Lord. And within the context of thinking of the Lord, he's thinking of the Gopis. Again, setting that example for us. How to appreciate and respect the devotees based on the practical principle that the Lord is more pleased when his devotees are glorified. So I was thinking as part of our discussion today, would like to hear at some point from some of you practical ways in which we can practice what's being described here, what's being demonstrated here, which is how to respect and appreciate devotees. I know Anasuya Mataji, and I'm sure Vishnu Gadar could agree that in managerial situations in ISKCON, we end up not necessarily criticizing, but being critical about certain individuals. We use critical thinking. We call it critical thinking, but sometimes it's criticizing disguised as critical thinking. So we have to be very careful. So how can we protect ourselves from going into the negative side of analyzing devotees or even other persons? One of my favorite quotes from Srila Prabhupada that helps a lot for me, hopefully it'll help for you, I call it "Run the Risk of Criticizing Vaishnavas." And this is an excerpt from the purport in the 6th canto, 17th chapter, verse 15. Mother Parvati was justified in punishing Chitraketu, because a lot of times we're justified in what we say about a person, about a situation. I mean, in the case of Bhishma, it was justifiable to criticize him because he was fighting with Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Bhishma's fighting with him. But that fighting with Krishna was a great source of pleasure for both Bhishma and Lord Krishna. So the devotees, in looking at that pastime, have to reflect. This was the pastime of the Lord with his devotee reciprocating. But from the external view, he was attacking the Lord. So it says Mother Parvati was justified in punishing Chitraketu. So many times we're justified in the things that we say about, especially about devotees, but this particular purport expands it more. Many times we're justified because we analyze it minutely, the faults, the problems. But we have to be careful that when we do that, we're doing it for the betterment of that person, for their benefit, and also for our own benefit, that we protect ourselves from being overly critical unnecessarily. So for Chitraketu impudently criticized the Supreme Father, Bhishma, he's attacking Krishna. So here it's saying that Chitraketu impudently criticized the Supreme Father, Mahadev, Lord Shiva. So you just look at the comparison. Bhishma is fighting with Krishna. Chitraketu is criticizing Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva, Mahadev, who is the father of the living entities conditioned within this material world. The goddess Durga is called mother, and Lord Shiva is called father. Now here's the part that really, I keep it in my mind, in my heart many times. A pure Vaishnava should be very careful to engage in his specific duty without criticizing others. This is the safest position. Otherwise, if one tends to criticize others, he may commit the great offense of criticizing a Vaishnava. So there's a lot packed into those few sentences. Pure Vaishnava. So pure Vaishnava, there are many levels of Vaishnavas. You're talking about a pure Vaishnava should be very careful. And what to speak of us, neophyte devotees, who are trying to excel in Krishna consciousness, should we not be careful? But many times we're very careless in how we speak about each other. And I'm speaking from personal experience, not just because I've served as a temple president several times and been in that position to correct others. I've told this story a couple of times. I was giving a Bhagavatam class one morning, and this homeless guy was in the temple. Of course, smelling a certain way and looking a certain way. And then at the end of the class, I put on my management hat, and escorted him out of the temple in a very disrespectful way. Get out. You're disturbing the devotees. I sort of pushed him out the back door. And he looked at me as if Krishna spoke through his consciousness. He looked at me and said in his own way, "You ain't nothing." Now, that's a Southern way of saying things. You ain't nothing. In other words, you're nobody. And I looked at him and went, and I was thinking I'm such a big person and he's such an insignificant person. Look at how I'm treating him. And he spoke back to me something that really stuck with me. I am insignificant. I am, servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. And this person that I assume to be less than me, look how I'm treating that person. I could have done it in a different way. I could have said, "Excuse me, sir, but I took a very aggressive attitude. So sometimes we do that. Another instance is when this gentleman, this is like 1973 or 74, he was also kind of a homeless guy. And devotees used to ignore him and sort of shoo him away. He would come every day to the temple, just sort of shoo him away and maybe give him a little prasadam. Turns out that he was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada who had fell into difficult times. And when we realized that, and he got shaved up again, cleaned up again, we were like, oh my God, have we committed offenses to this person? So when I discovered this purport, it revolutionized my thinking. A pure Vaishnava, not me, but a pure Vaishnava, should be very careful to engage in his specific duty. That's another aspect of this statement by Srila Prabhupada. Without criticizing others. My specific duty, focus on my service to Krishna, to Srila Prabhupada, and not criticize yours. If I can help you in yours, and I can share something with you that might help you in your service, then I should do it very carefully and very lovingly, without any pride, because in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, I believe it's verses 8 through 12, the first principle of knowledge is humility. Amanitvam, I believe that's a Sanskrit word. First principle is humility. In being considered like a leader, you must be humble. And what is that definition of humility given by Srila Prabhupada? Not being anxious for the satisfaction of being honored by others. And that extends out within our whole life. We always want people to appreciate us. Nobody wants to have others criticize them. But in the path of devotional service, that those others criticizing you could be something that help you become more and more humble, but you should not criticize others. Therefore, it says in this purport, this is the safest position. Focus on your own specific duty. Don't criticize others. Otherwise, if one tends to criticize others, as many of us do, he may commit the great offense of criticizing a Vaishnava. What does that mean in this nice statement by Srila Prabhupada? Who knows who the other Vaishnava is? In reality, everyone is a devotee of Krishna. That's the Mahabhagavad platform. Now, we don't claim to be on that platform, but that is the platform where the Mahabhagavata sees everyone as better devotee than himself or herself. I mean, I don't claim that at all. It's just like a level way beyond my pay grade to understand that. Seeing everyone as a better, but we get the opportunities to practice that throughout our life as devotees, actually throughout our day. I remember His Holiness Bhattacharya Maharaj, when we asked him years ago when he was Ganesham and living in Atlanta as a brahmachari, we were sitting at the prasadam. Actually, we didn't have tables. We had to kind of, what do you call it? Like in Mayapur, they have these brick runners, or you sit down on either side of this little brick runner. So we had those in our basement trying to imitate Mayapur. So he was on one side, we were on the other side. I remember exactly who was there. Bhaktitirtha, Ganesham, Vaishnavananda, my older godbrother, and a couple of other devotees. So we asked him. We knew that he was the recognized humble devotee in ISKCON. Prabhupada had one time rubbed him on the head and said, Ganesham, no one could match your austerities. I heard that story many times. No one can match your austerities. So we wanted to know from him, Ganesham Prabhu, how do you become humble? Without hesitation, not even blinking his eyes, he said, offer obeisances 100 times a day to the devotees. And that was just an eye-opener. Here's some of the dynamics of that. I'm sure you can all see it from different angles. But for me, what it says to me or speaks to me is that if I'm offering obeisances to 100 devotees a day, then the chances of me being critical or criticizing unnecessarily are minimized. Because I'm so busy offering obeisances, I don't have time to criticize. And I've noticed over the years that the devotees don't really offer obeisances fully to each other. Now, that could sound like I'm criticizing. I'm trying to analyze and understand, why is that? Why is it that we don't take that moment? It only takes, 5-10 seconds to say, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. And then in my training or growing up as a brahmachari for about 8 years, and even beyond that, we always got down and offered obeisances to each other. Sometimes that may not be practical. Like if you meet a devotee on the street, or you meet him at the bank or at the grocery store, please accept my humble obeisances. But don't rule that out. When was that? Maybe 2 months ago. I was shopping at the Patel Brothers Indian store in Atlanta. And I was coming out, and I noticed in the store there was a brahmachari. There's some brahmacharis in Atlanta doing book distribution. So this brahmachari had a huge cart full of groceries for their preaching. Huge cart full of little small devotee. And he went out the door, and I actually came out the door from the other side. And you know what he did? He stopped his cart on the roadway. He recognized me, got down and said, please accept my humble obeisances, Balabhadra Prabhu, please. I was like, oh my God. And I was embarrassed. And I had to get down as well. And I'm sure people looking, what's going on here? It touched my heart that this devotee is being trained to respect, not just because I'm an older Prabhupada disciple, it's just trained how to offer obeisances, which protects us from sometimes being critical of each other. So what I'm trying to say is that this point that's mentioned in the purport about the Lord is satisfied more when his pure devotees are glorified. How do we do that amongst each other? Because maybe we don't consider each other as pure devotees, and we're not sannyasis, we're not gurus, we're not big recognized devotees. Just we're just devotees practicing Krishna consciousness. So do we have to do it to each other, or should we just do it to the big devotees? When the big devotees come, everyone just running, offering obeisances and making sure the Maharaj sees me offer my obeisances. So we can be a little bit recognized. Quick story, when I went to get initiated in Chicago in 1974 from Srila Prabhupada as the Lotus Feet, because I was a young, kind of healthy devotee, young, kind of powerful looking little devotee. So they put me as Prabhupada's guard in his to protect his room. It was very special. So they went on the morning walk, and I'm guarding Prabhupada's door. So I had a plan that when Srila Prabhupada comes back, I'm going to impress him. I'm going to get down. I'm going to offer obeisances so beautifully and so loud, he'll probably stop and say, who is this wonderful boy? So when Prabhupada came back, the door opened. It's the old Chicago temple. It was in Evanston. I think it was Evanston. It's a big YMCA building. So the door is open, and Brahmananda comes through, and Satsrup comes through, and all the big sannyasis come through. And then there's Prabhupada. And here I go. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to impress Srila Prabhupada. I get down. I couldn't remember the prayers. I was so overwhelmed with the presence of Srila Prabhupada. Krishna took away my so-called, that I was going to impress him with that. So I learned my lesson that day. I really did that. Don't try to do things in a prideful manner. Just do everything in a humble, loving service manner. So when we are with each other, we should respect all the Vaishnavas. And as according to this quote that I gave you, don't criticize anyone, because you run the risk of criticizing a Vaishnava. You actually are criticizing a Vaishnava, because everyone is a devotee. Every living being is part and parcel of Krishna. Mamaya Vamsa Jiva Loke. All these living entities are mine. All these living entities are part and parcel of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada has expressed that so many times in so many ways. Some old Dhamma, no, what is that verse? My memory's getting old. Anyway, the Brahmana Pandita Samadarshana. Yeah, I can't remember the first part now. Anyway, Pandita Samadarshana. So the Vidya Vinaya Sampane, Brahmane Gavi Hastini, Sunichaivo Sopakecha, Pandita Samadarshana. So this learned sage, he sees with equal vision. Dog, dog eater, cow, outcast, sees everyone equally. He sees the Supreme Lord manifest equally everywhere. Just like when we go to the temple, it's just a building. Don't forget, the temple is just a building made of the same materials as the jailhouse or the schoolhouse or the grocery store or the bar. Same materials. You buy them from the same place, Home Depot, wherever, you know. So the temple is made of this. So it's a building. What makes it special? We say the Lord is there, right? Everyone knows that the Lord is there. So we say the Lord is there. So we go in, we're respectful. We try to be humble. We try to be humble. Like right now, I'm excited because I'm going to the Atlanta temple today for my Tuesday, sit down with the deities and read the Bhagavatam and take a little prasad and do a little kirtan. I'm so excited. So I'm just going to run out and go do it. Wait a minute. Isn't the Lord in everyone's heart? Yes, he's in everyone's heart. So he's in the temple, but he's in everyone's heart. Like Prabhupada was saying the other day in a class I was listening to, people criticize and they say about God, God is everywhere. But then when Prabhupada says Krishna is in the temple, people say, no. He said, but if he's everywhere, why not in the temple? Okay, he's everywhere. You say he's everywhere, why not in our temple, Hare Krishna temple? Oh, no, you're worshiping idols. No, you say God is everywhere, why not in the temple? So if Krishna is in everyone's heart and we're supposed to respect and worship Krishna and think of him all the time, Manmanad Bhavamad Bhakto, should we not feel that or stop and think about that for a second, that he's in every person's heart? Same Lord manifested as a super soul. Not that we go and bow down to every person on the street, but should we not respect every person on the street? That's not easy. Some of the persons on the street are demoniac in their activities and character. Srila Prabhupada says very definitely, an atheist is a demon. I just read that the other day again. An atheist is a demon. He's not a demon with horns and, fangs and all that, but he's a demon in terms of his mentality. But the Lord is in that person's heart. So should we not have a respectful attitude, at least? It's like when we say namaste, a lot of people now has become a very popular word, namaste, and people don't stop to think of what that really means. I'm respecting the spirit within you. There are two spirits within you. There's a supreme spirit and then the individual spirit. And the same thing is within me. So we're respecting. And actually, I was telling the devotees, there's a church outside of Atlanta in a city called Macon, African-American church. And the church is identified, if you look it up on the internet, it's called the Namaste Church. It's a Christian church. Yeah, I told you about it before. And the pastor gives a lecture about Namaste and the meaning of it, being able to recognize the spirit. Now, he's not so much aware about the super soul, but he's at least taking it to a certain level. So in our dealings with each other, I mean, it's maybe harder to see it in every other person, but can't we see it amongst the devotees? Can't we begin to appreciate that a devotee has given his or her life to serve Srila Prabhupada? The Gopis, you can think for a second that Bhishma Dev is thinking of the glories of the Gopis, not just because they're Gopis. What makes them special? They're just ladies, women. But what makes them special? What makes them special is exactly what Bhishma is saying about the Pandavas, how they sacrifice. It was not fair that you have to sacrifice like that You and your family and Kunti all sacrificing. It's so painful. He mentioned early in some verses. Who are these gopis? What have they done? That Bhishma is talking about them at the time of his passing. What makes them so special? Well, what makes them special is that they sacrificed everything for the Lord. One place, Srila Prabhupada says, the gopis do not want anything from Krishna, nothing. They're not asking anything from Krishna, except his association. They want that. And when they don't have that, they lament. But that lamentation is the greatest ecstasy of all the Vaishnavas. That missing Krishna, that lolium, that hankering for his association, so they can serve him, not to enjoy him. And their greatest joy, the gopis, is to arrange for Radharani to be with him. How wonderful the gopis are. So rightfully so, Bhishma and the acharyas glorify the gopis. In the Upadeshamrita, text number 10, and I won't do the Sanskrit, it's very long, but I have to read the verse. In the Shastra, it is said that of all types of fruitive workers, he who is advanced in knowledge of the higher values of life is favored by the Supreme Lord Hari. Out of many such people who are advanced in knowledge, Gyanis, one who is practically liberated by virtue of his knowledge may take to devotional service. He is superior to the others. However, one who has actually attained prem, pure love of Krishna, is superior to him. The gopis are exalted above all the advanced devotees because they are always totally dependent upon Sri Krishna, the transcendental cowherd boys. And then among the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the most dear. So the gopis are totally surrendered to Krishna. And then we know from the pastimes in the Krishna book or 10th canto that the gopis, when they heard Krishna's flute in the dead of the night, they went away from the family, leaving their husbands and children, everything, sacrificing everything for Krishna. So Bhishma Dev is thinking of that. He's not criticizing, saying, oh, what kind of lady are you? You're married and you're leaving your family to go to Krishna? No, he's relishing that love, that intense love, as it says at the beginning of the purport. By intense ecstasy and loving service, the damsels of Brajabhumi attain qualitative oneness with the Lord. So Bhishma is appreciating that. So I would say, in my simple way of thinking, that if we practice appreciating each other, we can protect ourselves from what Prabhupada said in that quote that I gave you, from running the risk of criticizing a Vaishnava. I remember when I was doing some research on personal development in this one company, the CEO, what he did was every week, everyone had to find something special about the person that they were working with, and they had to write it down specifically, and give it to that person, recognizing something specific that they had done. That means they were looking throughout the week to see someone doing something right, not looking to see someone do something wrong and then emphasize that and then make a whole campaign about that. Don't you know this? Don't you know that about this person? They were actually trying to see. And when you try to see the good in others, generally you will find something that you can appreciate. Now, I know this is a very hot political environment right now with all the things that are happening in Ukraine and with Vladimir Putin and all that. And also, please let us pray for the devotees' protection there in that situation. Actually, I sent the Narayan Kavacha prayer to them yesterday through Naranjana Maharaj. I said they probably should chant that every day. But anyway, they showed on CNN this gentleman they call the Piano Man. And the Piano Man is there in Poland as the people are getting off the trains or buses in freezing cold and playing beautiful music just to make them feel a little bit better. And he did that in different parts of the world. He also did it in where George Floyd was killed. He also went there. The unique thing that I appreciated about it was, now this is hard, very difficult, because in my mind, this so-called Mr. Putin, I wish he would just go away and whatever. But this guy said, Everyone has goodness in their heart, even Mr. Putin. And I know if he would also maybe feel better if he heard some beautiful music. And I was thinking, wow, is this guy a devotee or what? He's trying to find the good in such a apparently evil person. Now we know that even such an evil person is a devotee because he's a pure soul. But the acts that he's doing are not at all acceptable. But is there something there that can be redeemed? I don't know. So I changed my prayer. I'm praying, please, Srila Prabhupada, please, Krishna, you're in this person's heart. Change this person's heart to save the lives of so many people and to protect the devotees. My dear Lord, you have put this person in ignorance. Can you please, if it's your desire, please change this person's heart? And that made me feel better when I did that because I was so angry and so upset. So now I'm praying. So, and my point again is that we have to be intelligent about how we deal with situations, okay? Use our intelligence. Sometimes we have to analyze in a critical way. But at the same time, especially when we're dealing with devotees, we should find some way to appreciate each other. As Bhishma Dev, lying on a bed of arrows, last part of his life, he's thinking of the Pandavas. He's thinking of, and all the great sages, everyone is there just to hear Bhishma because he's such a great devotee. And he's giving them the very best example here, appreciating the Gopis, the best of all the devotees of the Lord, because the Gopis sacrificed everything. So I would say that if we implement that, if we haven't already in our lives, especially amongst devotees, because the association of devotees gives us a chance to practice better principles of life. And if we practice appreciating each other, then we can gradually expand that out, because if you want to be a preacher, it's very difficult if you don't appreciate people. Very difficult. If you think people are just here's another opportunity to get some money from a person or just to give them a book and, get something from them. In reality, we should see them as servants of Krishna who've forgotten their relationship with Krishna. And my duty is to remind them, Om Ajnanatimirandasya, to open up their eyes to this torchlight of knowledge. And I have to do it because these persons, forgotten Krishna, fallen souls, paying most heavy illusions toll. That's a prayer from Srila Prabhupada. So we understand what their situation is. Out of love and compassion, we try to lift them up, which gives us purity by doing that. That's what we say, purity is a force. So that purity comes from the level of compassion we express towards each other and for the general mass of people. Lord Chaitanya, whose appearance day is coming very soon, that is his whole mission, to lift up the condition of the fallen souls, praying for them. We were just recently glorifying the Bhattacharya in his appearance day. And he surveyed the world and saw it was very bad. And he said, I cannot do anything. Lord, you have to come personally and do this. There were jug eyes and mud eyes and all kinds of personalities. So we have so many different kinds of personalities in the world today, including the leader of Russia and people like that. So we're not strong enough to do it. We're praying to the Lord, please, my dear Lord, please intercede, do something if it's your desire to change the situation in the world today. Everyone is forgetting you. As Srila Prabhupada also observed when he came to America, people in this country, he said, most of them are in ignorance and passion, forgetting you. But you're the mystic, great mystic. You put them into that illusion. Now I'm praying, please take them out. Make my words suitable for their understanding. Always thinking of the benefit of conditioned souls. That's the symptom of the devotee. So following that example, like here with Bhishma Dev, thinking of the Gopis, thinking in such a wonderful way, we should try our best to exhibit more compassion, appreciation, and being in the association of devotees gives us that opportunity to practice that. That's my main point. How do we practice amongst each other this whole process of appreciating devotees? Are there some specific things that we can actually do without being artificial? Like Bhattacharya told us, offer obeisances 100 times a day. Now, at that time, we didn't have 100 devotees in the Atlanta temple. So in order to get to 100, we would offer obeisances 5 or 6 times to the same person. I'm not exaggerating. It's a fact. You can see devotees like, okay, but we just offered obeisances. That's enough. Okay. No, but I got to get to 100. So the practice, Sadhana Bhakti means practice. We're practicing devotional service. So we have a few minutes left. So if anyone would like to share any thoughts specifically on how we can enhance and improve our interactions with each other in a loving, respectful way, specifically as Bhishmadeva is doing in glorifying the devotees. So I'll open it up for the devotees.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for such an amazing class. It's amazing how you took this class into complete, for me especially, I feel a complete switch from what the Prabhupada said to really appreciating devotees and taking our Krishna consciousness seriously and how to respect devotees and how to view the temple as a place of not just the deities. And I really, really appreciated that. And like Dear Krishna said, it's completely an ecstatic class. Completely an ecstatic class. In fact, when you're speaking about the temple, Prabhu, and I know at least what was coming to my mind when you were saying that yes, we go to the temple just for the deities, but then what about the devotees? And you were saying that the Lord is in every devotee, and it took me back to my Christian days when when my parents would say, it's time to go to church, get ready, wear a church dress and sort of, and I'm like, oh, I better go to church again. But my young little child mentality, not really understanding the importance of church, the impetus for me to go to church was to see my friends private school,
Mm-hmm.
and I can go see this friend and sing this church song and go for the church. In the church service, they always have a children's section, and I used to always like being part of that. So that was my impetus. So I was just remembering how it's so important that we also go to the temple, not just the deities, although the Lord is there, but it's most of the devotees.
That is so beautiful. I mean, I was saying I'm going to the temple in a little while. I'm actually excited to see Ganesham Prabhu. Ganesham Prabhu is the main pujari at the Atlanta temple. And just seeing him inspires me. And his English is not so perfect because, Bengali, all that business, but the look on his face, how he takes care of Tulsi, how he makes sure I get a little prasadam, how he even coming on the altar to worship the deities, he'll look at me and do like that. It's like amazing. I just can't wait to see Ganesham Prabhu and other devotees as well, but especially he's so inspiring just to go and have his association, have his darshan. It's inspiring. So I'm trying to make sure that I can appreciate something about each devotee, even the devotee that I have a problem with. I have problems with different persons. I'm trying to get past that and see the wonderful things that those devotees are doing. Maybe they're not doing something, to bless me or touch me or whatever, but they're doing something to serve Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. So yes, don't go to the temple just to see the deities. It's like going to the holy place to take a bath and not taking advantage of the saintly persons there. That's not recommended. We go to the temple to see the deities, of course, but to associate with the devotees and to give our association. Make sure, chant your rounds nicely, read nicely. So when you're in the association devotees, you can give some good association because they're also looking for association. Some devotee might be in distressful condition that day and you come there and you kind of spaced out, you can't help. But if you're inspired, you've been reading, you've been chanting, you've been serving, you can actually help lift another person up just by focusing on your Krishna consciousness. So you're right, Anasuya. We should go for the purpose of seeing the deity, but also to have the association of devotees and to give nice association to devotees.
Thank you, Prabhu. Dear Krishna, please go ahead with your question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All good.
Jai Prabhu, accept my humble obeisances. Next time I see you, I'll get down on the floor and offer full obeisances, okay?
I will pay you 10 times, 100 times more, Prabhu. So, thank you so much for wonderful class. Absolutely ecstatic. So, Prabhu, when you were asking, some thoughts on how can we improve, I'm just trying to rephrase that.
Yes, sir.
When we go to temple or when we associate with devotees, how can we improve that experience? So, one thing in our movement, we always hear that we have to follow the path of Brajvasis, Gopis, So if we really think about it, and that is my understanding, and you can correct me and make sure it is not a speculation or something. But one thing definitely we can do, or at least I would like to do, is to develop a consciousness that as soon as we enter at least the temple compound, we should feel that we are into Vrindavan, because that's why we use the word consciousness in our movement.
Yes.
It's just a Vrindavan consciousness. And I think that in itself might make a lot of transformation, at least for those couple of hours we are in the temple and associate with everybody, take care of our duties there or responsibilities. I think that's just a simple thought, Prabhu. So maybe you can.
That is so beautiful. You immediately made me think of the pastime of the four Kumars and Jai and Vijay. Because Jai and Vijay are at the last gate in the spiritual world, and there's actually some other gates and different personalities protecting those gates. But the four Kumars come to Jai and Vijay, and they restricted them from coming in. And I can't remember the total pastime, but to some extent they were saying, in other words, how do we get this far in the spiritual world to the last gate and not being able to come in? In other words, how can someone be in the temple and not be blessed? Suppose it's a homeless person. Suppose it's a sannyasi. It doesn't matter. How did that person get to the temple, which is the most exalted place anywhere? So then, as you're saying, dear Krishna, when we enter within the temple compound, our consciousness should change. Of course, our consciousness should change for wherever we are in life. But the temple is a place to practice this expanded consciousness. So as you're saying, prepare yourself. So I'm preparing myself to go to the temple around 10 o'clock. I'm getting my mind ready. Don't go there criticizing Balabhadra. Don't, because the other day I was looking because they had done some painting or something, and I was not criticizing, but analyzing what it should have been done like this and something done like that. And then Ganesham and we just sort of calmed down and start appreciating, and the thing transformed. So when we go to the temple, prepare your consciousness. I just heard Srila Prabhupada say this morning, listening to his Bhagavatam class. It was the installation of Jagannath deities in San Francisco. And Srila Prabhupada said, and there were a lot of just new people. He said, when you come to the temple, bring one piece of fruit. He said, it doesn't have to be expensive piece of fruit, just some piece of fruit, and bring for Krishna. I said, it's so sweet. So you're thinking, I'm going to the temple, let me take something for Krishna. Let me, get ready and be clean and be respectful. So when we enter, as dear Krishna is saying, when we enter with that mood, the tendency to criticize will go down precipitously, at least go down some, because we'll be thinking that, look at this environment. Okay, come on, we spent all this money to go to India, to the Ganges, to the Jamuna, to Vrindavan, to try to act humble and respectful. And then we come around each other in Harrisburg or Atlanta or Philadelphia, and then maybe we don't do that. Wherever Krishna is, that is Vrindavan. You don't have to go all the way to Vrindavan. You can do it right here. So when we enter the temple, which is a transcendental place, wherever it might be located in Ukraine or Harrisburg or Atlanta, doesn't matter where it is. I saw the other day a video of a devotee in Ukraine describing their situation, and behind him was their temple. That building was like the old New York temple. I think it was like 12 or 13 stories. I said, oh my God. You saw that video? It's incredible. And he was just speaking so beautifully about the situation there. And I'm thinking, these temples are all over the world. They're so special places. So we should take the time to prepare our consciousness when we go there. And that will help, as dear Krishna was saying, help protect us from committing those kinds of offenses to each other. Thank you very much for that insight.
One thing, as you were speaking, Prabhu, I was had a reflection that this year on, because our temple in Harrisburg is just a 1 day a week temple. So what we started doing is we started opening the temple from 1 o'clock on auspicious days like Lord Nityananda, Gaur Purnima, stuff like that. Just to, one is to give darshan to whoever comes, and two is opportunities for devotees to come to service. So the first time that we did it was that we opened the temple from 1 o'clock on was on the appearance day of Lord Nityananda. And I take the whole day off because I have, time to take from work. And so I go there to the temple of the deities. And the first time I did that this year is my first time, Prabhu, being in the temple with nobody there and just sitting and just chanting. And by Prabhupada's Vyasasan, the old one from Philadelphia Temple in 1975. Yeah. It was so beautiful. It was so sublime. And I said to myself, I don't know what it's like to be in Vrindavan and Mayapur, but this is good enough. It was so beautiful, like it was so sublime. And I said, Krishna, I just hope. And when I was there, I said, I hope I can continue. I was praying, help me to continue really relishing this building. Wow. And, and really seeing it, because like you said, Prabhu, we have the tendency of, always achieving to go here and there to the big dhams, but then we minimize our own temple. It's, and what I feel is present for me is when we carry that mood, then we spread that unhealthy consciousness and mentality to others. Yes. In a very subtle way. And they will also begin to think, this is it, whatever, but the bigger one over there, kind of a thing. And I think it's sad because Prabhupada is there in the temple. Wow. No, you reminded me of all these different things, but the specific incident of Jayapataka Maharaj and one of his disciples and Mataji. And there's a farm community about 4 hours from Atlanta in Tennessee. It was started by the Atlanta Temple. It's called Murari Sevak, very famous. So she wanted to go to Murari Sevak, but she's in Atlanta and she's a little frustrated in Atlanta. So she's going to her Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, I want to go to Murari because I can do this, and that. I can become more focused. I can chant better. He said, what? You're right here in Atlanta. There's Prabhupada. There are the deities. Just stay right here. Because she was just totally convinced that he was going to say, yes, Mataji, you should do that because you'll be better situated. He said, no, you stay right here. He said, the deities are here. Prabhupada is here. Why you want to go to Murari? Stay in Atlanta. So I just found it very striking. Wherever you are. Okay. Here's a really nice quote from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his song about Heroic Man. We call the song Heroic Man. I think there's a different title. But the Murari band, we recorded that song. And there's one verse, and I just gave that verse to Haryashra Prabhu and Dronacharya yesterday. And it says, forget the past, ne'er the future dream at all, but act with times that are with thee, and progress ye shall call. So you have to break that down a little bit. Forget the past is sleep and leave it alone. It's done. You can't do anything about the past. And don't dream too far into the future. Use your intelligence how to arrange for things, but don't go too far because it hasn't happened yet. Act with times that are with thee, and progress ye shall call. What are those? Right now is the time that you have. 5 minutes from now, you don't know what's going to happen. A plane could fall through my building. I don't know. I could get in my car and go, I don't know, something could happen. What about right now? Ooh, actually, hang on one second. This is so interesting. From the Chatur Shloki, Bhagavatam, 4 verses. And at the end of one purport is number 5. This one principle that Srila Prabhupada mentions. Even if a place is more glorious than heaven, if there's no glorification of the Lord of Vaikuntha or his pure devotee, it should be once quitted. Quitted means give it up. Even if the place is more glorious than heaven, if there is no glorification of the Lord of Vaikuntha or his pure devotee, it should be at once quitted. So that means that
right here, right now, we should just be appreciating Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, right now, not next week, not when we go to the Mayapur festival in India, not when Gaur Purnima comes on the 17th, not when the Sunday feast comes. What about right now? Where we are right now today on Zoom, Zoom, whatever. Now we have this opportunity to be with each other. Take full advantage. Each one of us should take full advantage of every second, every moment, because the next moment is not guaranteed. And the other moment is already gone. Don't lament about what you didn't do yesterday. Oh, I didn't chant properly. Forget about all that. You can't change that right now. And as dear Krishna was saying, we prepare ourselves thinking the temple is so beautiful and so wonderful. And you're saying, Anasuya, just sitting down by yourself in the temple with Srila Prabhupada, because you're not by yourself. Prabhupada and the deities are there. It's like so wonderful. Yes. So thank you for that.
And there's a nice post by dear Krishna where he says, the more I'm listening today, the more realizing as long as we have this tendency to judge and differentiate, we will not be able to even relish the Dham, since we will differentiate different places of Krishna's pastimes. Wow. And the Dham also.
That is
rarely
powerful.
happens, both at the subtle and gross level. Thank you for the wonderful poems.
Oh, that's so beautiful. My older godbrother, one of my main mentors, Charu Deshna Prabhu in Atlanta, famous book distributor in the time of Srila Prabhupada, he gave Bhagavatam class one day, and he said, what do you think? You think Krishna, when we close the curtains, has nothing to do? He has Radharani, he has his pastimes. We close the curtains, we think Krishna is like gone now. You say, right there, he pointed to the altar, Krishna's having his pastimes with the Kauri boys and the Gopis, and we're like, really? Because we're just seeing curtains are closed, arti's over, temple's closed. Like Krishna, we shut him out, there's nothing to do. Like Prabhupada says, Krishna's pastimes are going on in one universe, and just like the sun, so-called rising and setting, sun never rises and sets. Sometimes we see the sun. So Krishna's pastimes are going on somewhere, on the altar, right now. Wherever there's Krishna's Vrindavan, yes, we all say that. Wherever there's Krishna, there's Vrindavan. So we just have to, if we hear and chant regularly, nicely, focusing on the sound vibration of the Lord's holy name and his wonderful pastimes in the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, we just keep doing it nicely, then we will be blessed by Krishna to be able to see and perceive the things as we're talking about now. Don't be too proud thinking, oh, I'm thinking all these things. I'm realizing all these things. Don't be proud like that. I'm telling you and me, don't be proud. It is Krishna's Dadami Buddhi Yogam principle. Tesam Sattva Yuktanam Bhajitam Priti Purvakam. We serve with love, hear and chanting with love, just like the Gopis. The damsels of Brajabhumi attain qualitative oneness with the Lord by intense ecstasy and loving service. It's everywhere. The same point is made over and over again. Loving devotional service, Bhajitam Priti, always over and over, Satatam Kirtayantama. Why? Then Krishna will be pleased to give us the realizations. Don't think the realizations are coming from you. They're not. They're coming as a blessing from Krishna because of nice devotional service. And then, of course, one of my favorite verses, Nasta Praisa Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. All the inauspicious things in the heart are practically destroyed to nil when one hears regular 10 classes on Bhagavatam and render service to the pure devotees. It's so incredible. I mean, our philosophy is so scientific. We just have to practice it regularly.
And I think, Prabhu, your key point that made me realize is how it's so important that we really get to the basics of practice.
Yes.
And I think that's why we lack, the practice, the training, the guiding, the mentoring. Like I was telling one devotee over the weekend that this was back in Gitanagari, small, and the smallest of all things we think is not a big deal, but there's a reason behind it. I remember when I was pregnant with Vrinda, and during pregnancy we women get so hot and whatever. And I was wearing a sleeveless, long maternity dress, and Rajalila said to me, go home and change. I was 6 months. She made me walk home. Because it's unchaste. I said, but mother, I'm hot. She goes, wear a t-shirt. Go home. She made me walk home. But these are the little things that we learn. And I think it's so, and like, you know, the more and more I look back in my life, in my devotional life, I'm so grateful of all the chastisement, because I don't think I would have really understood the importance of practice. And I'm still learning. I mean, I still come to you. I go to another Prabhu. I go to so many other seniors just to learn. But I think the bottom line, Prabhu, and correct me if I'm wrong, that I think it's really seeing the importance of practice.
Yes. Practice is so, because that's sadhana bhakti. You know, we'll come to the next stage, Raganuga. We'll come by Krishna's mercy, but it won't come unless we practice, because that's devotional service. You know, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Prabhupada talked about that also in the class this morning. That all begins with Shravanam. Improve your Shravanam. Constantly work on improving your Shravanam, hearing. Because Srila Prabhupada says, unless you hear, how can you speak? How can you share about Krishna if you don't hear? And I learned from this wonderful devotee that's been conducting a class that I attended. He said, we should fill up with all Krishna. Just read the books, fill up. And then whenever you have to speak, it comes naturally, because you're just filling yourself by hearing and chanting all the time. So I made a promise to myself just a few weeks ago, and Mother Gita knows what I'm saying, because we all read the Bhagavatam, right? So I said, you know what? I'm going to read one chapter a day, no matter how long or short it is. Like some of the chapters are like, 150, 160 pages, 200 pages. Some of them are 50 pages. I said, doesn't matter, because by reading that chapter, you kind of get a sense of the whole thing that's happening there, and it's just revolutionary. Now, I'm sure many of you already do that, but for me, it was revolutionary. I mean, how long I've been reading the Bhagavatam? 49 years. Because sometimes you read a couple of verses and you read, something, then next day you pick it up and do some more, and then you kind of lose the context of what's happening. But reading one chapter is like, it's really ecstatic. It's like, wow, it's another kind of sadhana bhakti for me, regular practice. And I'm going to do it no matter what, how sleepy I might get at the end of the day, how much stuff I have to do. No, I have to read my Bhagavatam. One chapter. So for me, it's very special. I don't know about for anyone else, but probably you're all doing it.
For me, I have this fear, and it's funny because it's been lurking over my mind for a few months now, probably a little over a year. I have this fear that I'm like, what if I leave my body and I don't hear the whole Bhagavatam? Oh my God! I'm like so scared. I'm like so scared. I said, Krishna, please don't take me yet. Let me just hear the whole thing and then you can take me. I'm so fearful about that.
I know. Well, that's a beautiful thought. There's 300 and how many chapters? 340 chapters. So that's 1 year. Okay, we just do it. I love it.
Yeah, that's my fear. I always worry about that, Prabhu. Yeah. Any other questions from devotees? Any other points? Such a wonderful class. It really has been an ecstatic class.
Thank you, Mataji.
So thought-provoking. I know we passed the hour. Just want to make sure that if there's any questions, any comments, any food for thought, you can jump right now before we end the class. And if there isn't, we thank you all for joining us. Thank you for a beautiful class, Prabhu. Vancha Kaptivyascha, Kripasamudevya, Nitanam Pavanevya, Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Please pray for the devotees in Ukraine. Please pray for them.
Yes, Prabhu. Please continue to pray for them. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol Parikshit Prabhu. I hear that beautiful voice.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mother Gita.
Hare Krishna.